Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Etana for organizing this wonderful symposium. Also, I thank the team that worked with him and all of you, because you are very patient, you are sitting, listening all this time. My title was changed from what you have seen on the flyer. Revolutionary Ruptures, Regime Changes and the Oromo Question, a 50-year review of the 1974 unsuccessful Ethiopian Revolution. I have central arguments. My central argument is that a successive revolution must dismantle the oppressive and exploitative political economy and introduce democratic system by addressing the collective demands of the colonized and the dominated peoples. Regime change by itself could not alter the essence of the Ethiopian state. Multiple national questions, notably that of the Oromo nation, have lingered until now. Despite the numerical size, the Oromo people have been treated as second-class citizens. The revolution could not realize most of its objectives despite triggering regime changes. The changes could not decolonize the conquered nations, which would require dismantling the Ethiopian colonial state, defeating Oromo collaborator class and other collaborators, and implementing egalitarian democracy. Hence, a critical understanding of the essence of the Ethiopian state is essential. External legitimacy and authoritarian state. The formation of the Ethiopian colonial state was facilitated by the confluence of three factors: the intervention of European powers, the intensification of the process of political centralization in Abyssinia, the increased war-making capacity of the Amara Tigray warlords because of access to European firearms, and the military and diplomatic expertise. The European colonial powers enabled the Amara Tigray warlords to centralize their state power and create the Ethiopian empire. Ethiopia has never been a country, still an empire, despite the fact that most of you still call it Ethiopia a country. I don't, they have to change it. They didn't give me. Okay. I'm just to maintain my time. Okay. Yeah, I will have to continue to. Don't count the minute. It's not good. I just continue over here. Also, successive hegemonic world powers. I've just focused on this. Excuse me, this thing is taking time. Successive hegemonic powers have also assisted in creating and maintaining successive Ethiopian governments. By the way, you have to differentiate between government and the state. I'm differentiating them. They are not one and the same. Government is a subset of the state. While having external legitimacy, the Ethiopian state lacked legitimacy at home. Still, from the beginning up to now, there is no legitimacy at home, particularly among the colonized population. The state has some degree of legitimacy among the Amara Tigrayan peoples because of its cultural, religious, and linguistic affinities, but the state has failed to achieve internal legitimacy among the colonized nations at all. The state has practiced authoritarianism in Abyssinia proper, in the terrorism, repression, land disposition, slavery, that many people don't talk. Slavery also practiced, in economic and labor exploitation, in the colonized society to mainly benefit the Amara Tigray elites and their collaborators. They are not only Amara and Tigray elites, but there are Oromo collaborators, other collaborators, who have become members of the Naftanya settler class. Hence, I call the Ethiopian state an authoritarian terrorist state. As it is concerned with the Abyssinians, it's authoritarian. As far as it's concerned with the colonized people, it is terrorist state. It has been since the Menelik out to Abiy Ahmed. Using Christian ideology and forming an alliance, Menelik gained access to European technology, weapons, administrative and military expertise, and other skills that allowed to create the empire, the empire and the state, which I call the Ethiopian dependent state and the empire. Menelik colonization of non-Abyssinians, particularly the Oromo, allowed him to get access to abundant economic and labor resources. By the way, that is a very important point. People talk about Ethiopia, the Ethiopian empire. They never want to discuss about colonization. They think that like all people are facing similar problems, whether they are Abyssinians or non-Abyssinians. That is not true. The resources that Menelik obtained helped him to purchase modern weaponry and expertise necessary to create and maintain the dependent colonial state. Menelik, he allowed Iyasu to succeed him. At least he said that. So unfortunately, Iyasu didn't get an opportunity. He was a different kind of governor. He wanted to introduce change, to change the essence of the Ethiopian state. But he was toppled, he was not allowed to introduce reform. Between 1935 and 1941, Italian colonialism, that many people ignore again, which was very important, reorganized the state, eliminated slavery, and the Naftanya Gabbar system, which I call semi-slavery system, and changed the land tenure system to benefit the Italian colonialists and their collaborators, to benefit themselves. But they introduced some changes. However, the British restored the Haile Selassie government in power in 1941. So the Ethiopian state had never existed by itself. It must be supported from outside. It was created by the support of European powers. It must be maintained by successive hegemonic world powers, which started by Great Britain. The 1974 rupture, Ethiopia's first hijacked revolution, or a successful revolution. The Haile Selassie government was overthrown by the 1974 revolutionary upheaval, which enabled the military junta to come to power. The new regime could not solve the complex problems of underdevelopment, poverty, famine, unemployment, and nation-class contradictions that facilitated the revolutionary upheaval of 1974. The new regime hijacked the revolution and left the chronic problems unresolved. The regime change could not replace Ethiopia's state violence with sustainable peace, development, and democracy. Instead, it intensified dictatorship, colonialism, state terrorism, and development, which is characterized by ignorance and rampant poverty. Two subsequent regime changes took place in 1991 and 2018. Through the state regime change, state structures and the institutions have remained intact. Always, that's why I differentiate state from the government from state. The institutions have been, the armies that remained intact always. the media intact, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and the bureaucracy. It doesn't matter, regime change. Always these things continue to exist. These institutions have been modernized, quote unquote, to Amara Tigrayan elite, by Amara Tigrayan elites and their collaborators in power. These forces can be called the Naftanya settler class, as I already mentioned. The collective grievances of social forces, such as students, workers, and the intelligentsia, and the army, as well as class-nation contradictions, facilitated the revolutionary upheaval of 1974. The immediate cause of the revolution was the inability of the Haile Selassie regime to solve famine problems in Tigray and Wallo. The lack of strong organization allowed the military to capture state power and hijack the revolution. The emergence of the military regime showed change in the continuity in the Ethiopian colonial system. The land question was a central one. It was discussed a lot. I'm not going to repeat that. The Derg nationalized all land, as you know it. To stay in power, the Derg found it necessary to follow the revolutionary wave that brought it to power rhetorically. It was not revolutionary. It's just used rhetoric to claim it was revolutionary. It was a very terrorist regime. The Derg engaged in massive violence, which is called Red Terror, killing many people, many young people, students who engaged in revolution. It killed and threw dead bodies in Philippines. I don't know if you were there, you saw dead bodies every day on the street. So in order to maintain its power, it allied with the Soviet Union, again, hegemonic world power. Don't forget that. The world power. So with the help of the Soviet Union, it stayed for 17 years. Then with the demise of Soviet power in the late 1980s, in the beginning of 1990s, with the intensification of national liberation movements, in the crisis within the Ethiopian army, the Derg regime collapsed in 1991. The 1991 rupture, the second unsuccessful revolution. Supported by the United States, again, keep in mind, these powers, they don't come by themselves. The TPLF created and dominated the new government. The TPLF had this puppet organization called the EPRDF. I'm sorry, I'm different from many of you who are studying the TPLF, it created dependent organizations from Amhara, Oromo, southern peoples, which that turned against the TPLF during the 2018. The TPLF, EPRDF were under the control of Mallas Zenawi, whose strategic error almost destroyed Tigray recently. The OLF joined in forming the transitional government of Ethiopia, led by the TPLF, EPRDF, when the Oromo people accepted the OLF by rejecting OPD of Tigray. The OPDO belongs to Tigray. That's why I call OPD of Tigray. The Tigrayan-led government started attacking the Oromo national movement. The Tigrayan-led government banned the OLF in 1992, and independent Oromo institutions, including musicians and different newspapers, and labeled them terrorist organizations. It engaged in state terrorism, hidden genocide, and gross human rights violations. It's very amazing that the same thing that they have done to the Oromo have happened to the Tigrayan people. It's not their mistake because of the TPLF leadership. The regime's soldiers had openly shot thousands of Oromo, leaving their bodies for hyenas, burying them in mass graves, or throwing their corpses on cliffs. If you read human rights reports, you can find all of this. The 1991 rupture, the second unsuccessful revolution, so the government, the TPLF-led government continued to kill Oromos. This killing included burning alive, bombing, cutting clothes of arteries in the neck, strangulation, burying people up to their necks in the ground. So how did the OLF respond to that? The OLF built hidden activist networks of the Cairo movement or Oromo Youth Movement that gradually become a very strong movement because of the development of Oromo nationalism, which I call Oromoma. The OLF focused on organizing students clandestinely into cells and they coined the slogan called Finchila Didda Darbuma, revolt against political slavery, which took almost 15 years to develop into the Cairo movement. The accumulated grievances and the broadening and deepening of Oromoma or Oromo nationalism resulted in the Oromia-wide peaceful protest movement between 2014 and 2018. The collective grievance of the Oromo included political repression, land expropriation, and wealth accumulation and the expansion of Finfinne, and the racist arrogance of the Tigrayan elites and their collaborators contributed to this powerful, peaceful movement. The Oromo Youth Protest Movement mainly triggered the 2018 regime change, which made Colonel Abiy Ahmed, a former spy and a member of OPDO, the head of the Ethiopian government and the state. This was another strategic error of TPLF, APRDF. So the third revolutionary crisis is the birth of the neo-Naftanya government. I call the Abiy government the neo-Naftanya. I will explain why. This regime change was more disastrous than the previous two regime changes for the Oromo. This came by the struggle of the Oromo people. It became more dangerous than the Derg and the TPLF, EPRDF regime because it engaged in very massive violence and killing Oromo nationalists and the Oromo revolutionaries. The TPLF created another strategic error, as I already mentioned, by allowing Abiy Ahmed, the snake it is created, to come to power. And that snake came to bite the TPLF, to destroy the TPLF. When the Cairo protest movement destabilized the TPLF, APRDF government, the leaders of this organization appointed Abiy Ahmed as the prime minister to replace Haile Mariam Desalegn, a placeholder for the TPLF. Really, he didn't have any power. To introduce minor reforms and to keep the system the way it was. Within the short time, Abiy and his Naftanya supporters opened war on the Oromo and then on Tigray. I called the Abiy government, already mentioned, it's the new Naftanya. Who are the new Naftanyas? The new Naftanyas are the descendants of the Amara settlers and the Ethiopianized Oromos, who are disconnected from Oromo, mentally Ethiopianized, and become the servant of the Ethiopian state and their own interests. So these forces have become the base for the Abiy government, and they have accumulated wealth, and they enjoyed luxurious life at the cost of ordinary people. If you listen what Abiy is doing, what these people are doing, you can't imagine in a very impoverished country, hunger strike, and people is investing money in building parks, doing small things around, building his own palace. People are starving to death. These are the neo-Netanyas, what the neo-Netanyas are doing. The Abiy government has tried to modernize the Ethiopian state by glorifying imperial leaders in the Ethiopian genocidal history while denigrating the history of the marginalized communities such as the Oromo. The new Naftanya government has been trying to destroy independent Oromo political organizations, namely the OLF, Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Army, the Oromo Federalist Congress. As the Derg and the TPLF, APRDF terrorized and committed genocide on the Oromo and their independent organization, the Abiy regime has continued these crimes and even more to make the Oromo leaderless and to exploit their resources. Conclusion, the three revolutionary ruptures of the last 50 years couldn't dismantle the Ethiopian colonial state and did not empower the oppressed classes and the colonized peoples, notably the Oromo, to achieve liberation and democracy. These three ruptures, only triggered the regime changes, but ended up trying to consolidate the colonial state and revive Ethiopianism or Habasha supremacy. It's very amazing. Haile Selassie, Mengistu, Mallas, and Abiy have been the worst version of Menelik. You can't believe. The worst version of Menelik, which have been produced by Habasha political culture of zero-sum politics and terrorism. In Habashan politics, everything should be based on violence and getting everything for yourself. There is no compromise. And when you come to power, until you will die, you will stay there. Then other force will come and force you from power. So the big problem of Ethiopia is the nature of the Ethiopian state. Until the nature of the Ethiopian state would be dismantled, changed, there cannot be peace, democracy in the Ethiopian empire. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jalata. Now,